I'll start out by saying that the state of Cincinnati, Cincinnati is in good shape. We're solvent, very solvent. I think that Cincinnati has hit critical mass. It's growing. The economy is growing. People are moving back into the city. Empty nesters, young singles, young couples. Not only, you know, at the banks, the urban core, as well as in over the Rhine. And my sense is that that's going to continue into the indefinite future. We have all of the right elements here. You know, geography is fantastic. Obviously, we've got the river, which is a phenomenal asset, but just the way that the city is designed, it's very manageable. You know, you can go downtown, park your car, you can go see a show, you can go to a restaurant, you know, you can walk and do all of this stuff. We've got a very booming arts scene, you know, performing and visual arts, and more coming. And, you know, I'm pleased and blessed to be the city manager at this juncture in time, you know, because the city is clearly on the upswing, and it's just beginning. What have I been up to for the past 6 months? It's been a very, very, very fast 6 months. A lot. I think I may have met with at least more than 150 different community organizations, because, you know, obviously that's very important. I want to understand what's the vibe, you know, what's the rhythm of the city, and what's important to the various sectors of the city. As we participate in the policy development process, and as we try to manage the city, you know, I need to understand, you know, because we can do a lot of things, but unless we understand the impact and we get feedback, you know, that's not a smart way to go about doing business. Not getting feedback is not a smart way of doing business. Lots of meetings. One of the big things, obviously, is, you know, pension reform under the mayor's leadership, because he started this process before I got here, and I sort of jumped on when I got to Cincinnati. I've been able to come up with a very, very solid resolution to the pension issue. We're just waiting for the judge to finalize the final documents associated with the negotiations that took place between the city and retirees, as well as the existing workforce in terms of the unions. I was able to work that out finally. The way the negotiations go, we got together around 10 o'clock one morning, and it was around 11:30 p.m. We were still at the table, and, you know, the way the negotiations turn out, you know, something mysterious happens, which is good. We were ready to just pack up and just leave. We had gotten to that point. Everybody was exhausted. Then all of a sudden something happened. We came back into the room, spent another hour and a half together, and we hammered out the agreement. But, you know, I give the mayor tremendous credit for that. I give Judge Barrett, who is overseeing this whole legal effort, in terms of his temperament, his understanding of the issues, and his understanding of human dynamics and how to try to get in there and make it work. So that's a major, major piece for the city. I think in the long run that's going to strengthen us in terms of how we are viewed by the bond rating agencies in New York, which is very important. One of the big things that I'm bringing to Cincinnati is a performance management program for the city. I'll try to explain what that is. The key is we have to, you know, Cincinnati government, I would say, is good, but we want to move to better than good. We want to move to great. How do we do that? The status quo is no longer good enough. The city is growing. The city is maturing. The city is evolving. So as a government entity, we have to keep pace with that. And we keep pace by making certain that we've got adequate infrastructure, we've got adequate government capacity to meet the demands and the needs of the city. Our performance management program has 3 components to it. I'm in the process of finalizing performance management agreements with each individual department head. It's not really a performance it's not like an end of year, you know how we get evaluations on the job. This is more so looking at, we've established these priority goals and we've established specific measurements for each department, performance measurements and expectations, which emphasizes results and outcome. I've never really been interested in level of effort. You know, you work 80 hours, so what? I don't care. The question is, what did you get done? You can work 40 hours and get a whole lot done, and that impresses me the most. And so level of effort is no longer a big deal. It's what are we getting done? You know, what differences are we making in terms of the work that we do? So these performance management agreements is to make certain that everyone is proceeding in the same direction. You know, attempting to achieve those priority goals. The second piece is we're establishing an innovation laboratory. You know, this is a specialized room set up with special technology and other ergonomic elements that support and encourage diverse groups with sitting down and dissecting processes. You know, we're going to seek out those processes that don't work or don't work as effectively as we need them to, and we will put them in this laboratory with a cross-section of people from the lowest level person in the organization, who could be a clerk, all the way to a senior manager. Whoever touches that process all along the way, they're put in the laboratory with a professional facilitator, and they don't come out until they've resolved the issue. And then once they've resolved the issue, we implement this new process with this modified process. We have a STAT program. I don't want to bore you with the details of it. It's extremely technical, but it's another accountability tool that we'll be putting into place. The key here, once again, is we have a clear-cut strategy. We have clear-cut goals. We know what we want to do. We know how we need to do it. We believe we know what difference it's going to make in terms of outcomes and results. And we've got these mechanisms and these tools that we're putting in place that will allow us to hold ourselves accountable for our activity, including the city manager. So that's really what it boils down to. Transparency, accountability, performance, results. So that's well on its way. You know, we're looking at, you know, the city is growing, which means that the economy is growing, which means that there's economic opportunity that's occurring up here. So one of the things that's very important to us that we're focusing a lot of time and attention on is how do we spread that economic opportunity out in terms of maximizing equal access to the opportunity. We've just launched an economic inclusion initiative several weeks ago, and that's what we have in mind for that. Just had a study completed, and it's a 5-year study. The city has spent hundreds of millions of dollars over that 5-year period. The study showed that 70% of those dollars went to 38 companies. That's not good. You know, we've got to spread that out, you know, so that it reflects more of Cincinnati from a, you know, demographic standpoint. So we've got major initiatives underway to foster economic inclusion throughout the city. That's a big thing, and you'll be hearing more about that. Going back to accountability, about a month ago I had a one-day retreat with my senior managers, and the idea was for us to come together to sort of come to consensus on what's important to us. You know, what do we want to focus our resources and our time on? So we came up with 5 priority goals. And we wanted these goals to be all-encompassing. You know, so when we say the goal, in order to achieve that goal, it means that we've got to do, it's implied that we've got to do 15, 20, 25 things if we're going to achieve that goal. So we're not going to list 100 goals because it's not necessary. We've got down to the very essence of what's important. Obviously, safer streets is our #1 goal. Cincinnati has become a model across the country in terms of policing. You know, in 2002, you had the riots, which was a bad period in time. It was a negative. But the city, which represented an inflection point for Cincinnati, you know, inflection point, you can go in a couple of different directions. There's a wrong direction, and then there's a right direction. Cincinnati went in the right direction. Since, you know, hopefully these other cities that are undergoing something similar today will have a meeting of the minds and say, look, you know, perhaps we need to look at changing. You know, we need to begin to become more tolerant. We must become more inclusive. We must begin to have a greater appreciation for diversity of race, diversity of religion, of, you know, whatever, which is what Cincinnati did in 2002, beginning in 2002. So the key for us in terms of safer streets is to continue to do what we're doing in terms of the strategies and tactics that we use in terms of our police department, but also a big piece here is the police community collaboration and partnership, which is a best practices. Cincinnati serves and provides a best practices model for the rest of the country. But obviously that didn't happen overnight. And it's a lot of the good stuff that emanated from a bad event.